From the very dawn of human civilization, man has endlessly searched for truth, for purpose, for that which would satisfy the hole that's lodged deep within each of our souls. And today we find the answer. It's my honor to present to you systems of equations.
So you'll notice the very first step here, we've got our x and our y and our number, our x and our y. What's up with the what's up? It's your boy, Mr. Ellis, coming at you live, but not really live because you're watching this later than I'm making it. So that's not live, but I'm going to teach you math. Woo! So last semester we learned about systems of equations, and this was a chapter that you probably completely forgot about because A, you slept since then, and B, everyone always forgets about systems of equations. But that's also why we need to go back and learn it, because you need to know it, because it's important. So this is the whole thing where you have two equations with two variables, and we have to solve for x and y. So we've seen a little bit of this, or saw it yesterday, I guess just to say, when we were graphing some things, I think, for most of you. But this is how we work with this and solve it by hand. So I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly. I'm not going to do the super duper duper difficult version of this. We're going to do the easy and medium, and then we're just going to roll with that. So check out the paper that you've hopefully picked up. If not, pause the video, go pick up this paper. You didn't follow directions. Go get this paper. I'm going to go through this very quickly and explain kind of the process. This is the basic process of how we solve this. Now there's two different ways we can solve these by hand. One's called elimination and one's called substitution. I really don't care which one we use. It's just typically people tell me that elimination is a little bit easier for them, so that's the one I'm going to focus on. Because if we can just do it one way, then I'm happy. So this is solving by elimination. And so you'll notice the very first step here, we've got our x and our y and our number, our x and our y and our number. That's standard form. And so, step one here says we need to make sure that we line up all of our parts. So to make this thing work, you're kind of lining up your x's, lining up your y's, and lining up your numbers. Putting both of these things in standard form. In this case, it's already in standard form, so that's a good thing. If it wasn't, if it was all jacked up and we had an x over here or y over there and numbers way up in the sky, we'd have to move it around to make it look like this before we could get started. So we just want to get everything like so that it's stacked on top of the things that it's the same as. That's going to be key as we go forward. So we make sure that we have everything in standard form. I guess we could write that down. Standard form. And once we have everything in standard form, what we're going to be looking for or creating is opposites. So if you look at your equation that you've got on your paper, you got the x and the x. The coefficient there are invisible ones, so that would be the same numbers that are in front of the x's, so those x's are the same. But if you look at your y values, notice how one's positive and one is negative. So those would be opposites. The idea here is that you want to find coefficients, that would be the numbers in front of the x or the y, that are the same number but different signs. D-I-F-F, that stands for different. Duh. So the idea here is that we want to find opposites. If we don't have opposites, we have to make them, and that's what I'm going to talk about in the next video. But for now, we're just going to assume that they're already there, and that's going to make our life really easy. So at this point, we're however far we are in the video, and you haven't done anything yet, because the problem that you had was already in standard form, check, and there's already opposites, check. So that makes things really, really easy. Once we have that as the case, once everything's lined up and we have opposites, what we're going to do is we're going to add A, D, and D. You're going to add each of our parts. So that means you're going to just work your way down. So you take your x values and add those. X plus x, well, there's two x's now.
If you have a dog and your friend gives you a dog. How many total dogs do you have? You have 2.
But these aren't dogs, they're x's. And then if we add the y values, 1 plus -1, well, those cancel out. And that's the whole idea. That's the reason why we do this. You might even say they
Eliminate.
because it's elimination. That's where the name comes from. And then we also want to make sure you do the same thing with the numbers. Sometimes people forget to do this on the other side of the equal sign. So 7 plus -3 is a +4. So when we add up all of our parts, we have a 2x and we have a 4. Ta-da! Got it? I'm about to erase this, so make sure you have it written down. Or you can just rewind, because this is a video, and that's pretty cool that you can do that. But you won't, because you're lazy. No, you're not. I'm kidding. You're awesome. I don't even know who you are. I'm just talking to myself. Let's see. Okay, so we've got the 2x equals 3. From here, you just solve for the variable. This should be really, really easy, no matter which problem we do. Once we get to this step, it's always going to be an easy process, just a one-step equation. Get the x by itself. It's multiplying by 2. The opposite of multiply is divide. Da 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 da. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, and that tells me what my x value is. Now, I'm halfway there because the whole idea of a system of equations is that you've got an x and a y value. You've got 2 things that you've got to solve for. So we found the x, which means that's half of the problem. Now we have to go back and find the y. How do you do that? Well, you just plug it back into one of your original equations. It doesn't really matter which one, so these are both of the equations that we started with. We could plug it back into either one of these. Either one would give you the right answer. Just do whichever one seems easiest. So if I take this 2 and I plug it into that x for that first equation, that would be 2 plus y equals 7. Subtract the 2 from both sides, and that lets me know that y equals 5. Now, the same thing would be true if I were to plug it into the other one. Here, I'll do a different color for you. That you might not even be able to tell. If I plug that into the other x, so it's going to be a little bit more complicated. 2 minus y equals -3. Subtract the 2 from both sides, and we get a -5. But notice how we've got that negative y. Make sure you bring down that negative. And so we got to divide both sides by -1, so y would still equal 5. So either way we do it, we're gonna get 5. So just pick one and do that. So my final answer would be x equals 2 and y equals 5. And usually you'll see people put this in, or the answer would be in like a coordinate point. So it would be like you would be putting a point on a graph. The x value comes first, which is the 2, and the y value comes second, which is 5. Elimination. So there's 2 other problems that's on your paper that's on the bottom. I can do one of them quickly with you. Which one would you like to do? Oh, cool. Let's do the first one. I like that. That's a great choice. That should be a plus, and I think I fixed that on your page. So again, we are looking for things that are lined up in standard form. If they're not lined up in standard form, we have to make that happen. In this case, they're already in standard form because this is the easy version. Once we have that, we're looking for opposites. They're already opposites because this is the easy version. There's a 3 and a -3. And so as long as we've got opposites, we're good. Doesn't matter if it's the x or the y. Once we have the opposites, we're just going to add up each of the parts, each of the columns. X plus 4x is 5x. And this is where the elimination happens. -3 plus 3. Well, that doesn't work. Go away. And then -20 plus 40 on the other side gives me a 20. So I'm left with a 5x equals 20. Now it's that really easy one step to solve for x. Divide by 5 on both sides. X equals 4. Now that's half of it, but we've got to go back and get the other half. So we take that 4 and we plug it back into whichever one we think is easiest. It really doesn't matter. In this case, you may want to put it back into the first equation because there's no coefficient in front of the x, and that's fine with me. Just be careful when we solve it. So I'm going to do this off to the side. I think you can still see it. 4 minus 3y equals -20. So we've got a little two-step here to solve for y. We're going to subtract the 4 from both sides because remember that's a +4. So let's subtract 4 from both sides. leaves us with negative 3y equals negative 24. Make sure you're bringing down that negative with the 3. Right? And then we divide both sides by negative 3. Negative 3 goes away. Y equals 8. There's your two answers. And usually people would write this like 4, 8. Just like that. Woo-hoo! Hoorah! Good for us.